Hi, I'm Bunny Cakes and welcome back to my channel. So as you'll remember, a few days ago I did a video called Fat People Have Eating Disorders Too. And today I am going to be doing another video, as you'll have seen from the title, and it's that poor people have eating disorders too. And that may be surprising because a lot of people associate eating disorders not just with thin people, but with people who have means. It's kind of a rich person disorder, or at least a middle class and above disorder. But in reality, that's not the case. You'll find if you research it that a big reason rather, that people develop eating disorders is because it's a control mechanism, and people when they develop an eating disorder, they tend to be at a point in their lives where they feel like they have no control or not a lot of control, and what they take in and what they put out of their body and how they exercise are all things that they have control over. And as a poor person, when your life is basically run by the paycheck to paycheck cycle and the debt and the constant emergencies, because basically every little thing that costs money is an emergency when you don't have money. Everything from a flat tire to broken glasses to a broken TV can be a crisis for the family when you don't have any money saved, or even if what you have saved is just a tiny amount. And so you can control what you eat to an extent. I mean, especially like when you live paycheck to paycheck, or if you live with food stamps or whatever, you don't have a whole lot of food, but you still can control what goes in and out of your body out of that amount of food that you have access to. And beyond that, just beyond anorexia and bulimia, poor people have emotional eating and food addiction too. And I think it might even be more prevalent in poor people because poor people celebrate with food more than anything else. And I know that because I grew up poor. And that's what we did. When we didn't have money for gifts, we always had a big Christmas dinner. When we didn't have money for gifts, people would make your favorite food or your favorite candy. I remember in the summertime when my grandma would come to visit, that's one of the things she did. She would make, like, those big popcorn tins that you get during the holidays? She would make those full of, like, chocolate fudge, and then she would make another one full of peanut butter fudge, and then another one full of peanut brittle, and that would be her gift to us, and she would give that to every family member. So, like, in our house, like, there would be a can of each of those flavors for us kids, and then there was a can of each of those for my mom and whoever she was with at the time, and then each of my aunts would get that, and their kids would get some, and my uncle would get that, and his kids would get some, and it was just food. Birthday parties would be the same thing. When people would celebrate, we would have cookouts with massive amounts of food. If somebody died, massive amounts of food happened. So you kind of develop an emotional attachment to the food, because when there's always food when good things happen. So if you eat those foods when you're feeling bad, they make you feel better. And then emotional eating doesn't always, but it can very often lead to food addiction, because when you are poor, poor people tend to frequently be depressed because there's no money and there's all sorts of stress, and you end up stuck in horrific jobs and such. So they tend to be depressed, and food addiction and depression and emotional eating are bedfellows. And so, like I said, poor people suffer with food addiction too, and or eating disorders rather too. And what's worse is that because poor people don't necessarily have the best insurance, or they don't have any insurance, and they certainly can't afford to go to rehabilitation centers out of pocket, they don't tend to get the help that is more easily accessible to people who are middle class and above. Um, so in some ways, it's even worse for a poor person to have an eating disorder. And it's also kind of overlooked because you don't think of poor people like wasting food with like bulimia, or having the means to be addicted to food. But it doesn't take means to do that, and anybody can develop anorexia or bulimia. In fact, because you're poor, you can easily bounce between fasting and binging, because you fast when there's very little food, and then when there is food, you eat everything you can, regardless of what it is, and then you probably purge afterwards because either you've overeaten or it's your way of controlling your weight. And on top of that, there's also a lot of body shaming and self-esteem issues when it comes to poor people, because people really get down on overweight poor people, because how can you be that fat and not have food to eat? So there are body image issues that can relate back to things like anorexia and bulimia. So that's food for thought for you guys. Discuss your opinions down below. If you are poor, or have been poor, and suffered from a eating disorder, and you feel like sharing your story, please discuss it down below. So that's all I have for this video, this discussion. Please like my video, there's a button down below, and subscribe to my channel if you like my content. Hit the notification bell so that you will be notified of all my future content. Hit this button up here to check out my booktube channel, and check out these videos over here for other videos that I've made already that you might be interested in. And remember to be strong, smile when you can, and always take care.